Welcome to the 2025 Consolidated Election Judge Training brought to you by the Illinois State Board of Elections. Some time frames prior to election include early voting and vote by mail, which starts February 20th, 2025. The last day to apply for vote by mail is March 27th, 2025, and the last day for early voting is March 31st, 2025. The last day for regular registration is March 4th, 2025. The last day for online registration is March 16th, 2025. And the first day for grace period registration is March 5th, 2025. Voters that require ID are voters who have registered and provided inadequate proof of identity, along with voters who are newly registered. ID is required prior to voting. Forms of identification can be driver's license or state ID, utility bill, student ID, but if they use a student ID, they also have to have mail addressed to them at their address of residence, a government check, a paycheck, a lease or a contract of residence, a bank statement, or any other government document. They must show that their name and address on their documentation matches the records. Before the polls open, arrive at your designated time. If judges do not show up, give them a call. Maybe they just slept through their alarm. You can replace missing judges after 6:15 a.m., but they have to be the same political party as the missing judge. Check your supplies, see if anything is missing, and set up or reconfigure the voting area. As always, call your election authority if you discover any problems. As election judges, you are officers of the circuit court. It's your job to uphold the U.S. and Illinois Constitution. You are the sole authority in the polling place. You're the sole authority of the campaign-free zone, and you are responsible for the proper conduct of the election. Remember to rotate positions. It reduces fraud, and it is law. So you act as a board, so majority rules, and you have equal authority. There's no head judge. Stay organized. Match your supplies with a checklist in your supply kit, and if anything is missing, call your election authority. When setting up the voting area, arrange voting booths for privacy. Give the voter as much privacy as possible. Allow for an orderly flow of voter traffic in the polling place. And remember that those tabulators must be in full view of the election judges. You want to make sure the voter is given the correct ballot sheet, especially since this is a primary. Ballot sheets are designated by code, color, or number. The ballot sheet code, color, or number should be matched with what is on the voter's application. You're going to compare each ballot style to each specimen ballot to verify that the following is listed correctly: each office, the vote for on each office, and each candidate. And if all that is correct, then all judges need to sign the certificate of inspection. If you have write-ins, a list of them will be provided in your precinct kit. The only valid write-ins will be the people on the list because they're candidates who filed 61 days prior to Election Day. The list should not be posted anywhere in the polling place. If somebody requests to see the list, they can see it. Please don't say the names of the candidates out loud. Please just show them the list. Place entrance signs and ADA compliant signs should clearly identify the entrance, and the ADA sign may not be on the main entrance used by most voters, so make sure that you put that on the correct entrance. Public roadway polling place signs should be placed on the public roadway nearest to the entrance of a polling place, and they must clearly identify the polling place. Post instructions in the voting booths and around the polling place. Who else may be present in the polls on Election Day? Law enforcement officials, representatives of the Attorney General's office, the state's attorney, the election authority, the State Board of Elections, and qualified poll watchers with proper credentials. A guide to poll watchers in Illinois. What are poll watchers? Election observers who aid in ensuring the free and fair conduct of elections. Poll watchers may be in the polling place before the polls open, during voting hours, after the polls close, and during early voting. Poll watcher qualifications. A poll watcher must be a registered voter in the state of Illinois. So that means they don't have to be registered in the county or jurisdiction they are poll watching in, and they must be affiliated with a party, organization, or candidate they are representing. Who authorizes poll watchers? Poll watchers must have credentials issued by either the local election authority or the State Board of Elections. They must represent an established political party, a candidate, a qualified organization of citizens, a state nonpartisan organization, be an organized proponent or opponent of a ballot proposition, and also candidates can be poll watchers, but they will have separate credentials for candidates. It's important to note that poll watchers need separate credentials for each precinct they enter, even if there are multiple precincts in one polling place. The number of poll watchers allowed in a polling place at any one time is limited by law. A candidate may always appoint 2 poll watchers per precinct, while all other organizations may only appoint 1 poll watcher per precinct. The only exception to this is that an established political party may appoint 2 poll watchers per precinct at each general and consolidated election. If overcrowding interferes with the orderly conduct of the election, the judges of election may limit the number of poll watchers. The election judges may cause the removal of any poll watcher who is disrupting the election process. What are the rights of poll watchers? Before the first ballot is cast, poll watchers may observe that the ballot box is empty. Poll watchers may position themselves near enough to the election judges to examine the application for ballot, but should not be placed at the judges' stations. Poll watchers may observe as the judges compare the voter's applicant's signature on the application with the signature on the registration records. Poll watchers may watch as the judges initial and distribute the ballots to the voter and can observe the ballot box from a distance where the privacy of the voter is not compromised. Poll watchers may challenge a person's right to vote. A reason for the challenge must be stated. They also must be reasonable. Possible reasons include that the person voted early in the day, the person moved, or the person lacks qualifications. A reasonable challenge, for example, would be if they said, "I know that that person moved because they were my neighbor." However, if they are objecting to every other person that came in, they are not being reasonable, and the election judges can vote to choose to no longer accept their challenges because they are being disruptive to the election process. The judges of elections determine whether or not to sustain the challenge. Poll watchers may observe the counting procedures after the polls close and at the central counting locations established by the election authority. These are some important facts to remember on Election Day. The judges of election are the sole authority in the polling place on Election Day. No person except a judge may touch or handle election supplies and materials. Election judges should also be the only ones talking to the voters. Poll watchers are official observers only. They may observe the conduct of the election before, during, and after the polls close. All poll watchers must present valid credentials upon entering the polling place. A law enforcement official may be present in the polling place to preserve order and carry out lawful direction given by the judges. Electioneering or any type of campaigning must not take place within the campaign-free zone, which is 100 horizontal feet from the entrance to the room in which voting is being conducted. Where ballots are counted in the office of the election authority, each political party, candidate, qualified organization of citizens, state nonpartisan civic organization, or organized proponent or opponent of ballot propositions shall be entitled to have 1 poll watcher for each panel of election judges. Poll watchers may come and go throughout the day by using the sign-in sign-out sheet. However, election judges should keep their credentials and return those credentials to the election authority at the end of the night. At no point should those credentials be returned to the poll watcher. Poll watchers should be permitted to observe all proceedings and view all reasonable requests related to the conduct of the election, providing the secrecy of the ballot is not impinged. Poll watchers may be appointed to observe early voting by personal appearance at each permanent and temporary polling place where early voting is conducted. If the election judges are experiencing trouble with poll watchers in the polling place, they should contact their election authority immediately. The campaign-free zone is 100 horizontal feet from the entrance to the polling place or room. No campaign signs, no campaign buttons, or electioneering are allowed within this campaign-free zone. You are the sole authority of the campaign-free zone. During voting hours. At 6 a.m., announce out loud that the polls are open, unlock the door, replace any missing election judges if your election authority approves, and collect any poll watcher credentials. A list will be provided for early vote by mail and grace period voters. A voter cannot revoke or cancel a ballot that has already been voted. If a voter is marked as already voted and claims they have not, call the election authority's office. If a voter was issued a vote by mail ballot and they have not voted it and they surrender the ballot to you on election day, they may vote as normal. If the voter claims they never received their vote by mail ballot, they may sign an affidavit and vote on election day. Voters may be challenged by poll watchers, election judges, or another voter. Reasons for the challenge may be that the voter has moved, the voter has already voted, the voter has changed their name, there is no record of their registration, or they are not the same person as the registered voter. In many cases, these challenges can be solved using the voter affidavit. You can use it for a change of residence, a name change in the same precinct, if their name is on the list but they don't have a digitized signature to compare to, if their vote by mail ballot was not received, or if they have a 911 address change. If you have a circumstance where you're not sure what to do with a voter, before you call your election authority, pull out your ballot entitlement chart because it might tell you what to do. What if a voter's registration cannot be found? A voter is challenged by a poll watcher, a voter insists that they are eligible to vote, or a voter applied for registration at the driver's license facility or online. Contact your election authority's office for additional information and instruction. Voter assistance for voters with disabilities or voters who cannot read or write the English language. The affidavit of assisted voters must be filled out every time a voter receives assistance in the voting booth, even if the election judges are providing the assistance. The affidavit must be spindled along with the voter's application. Who can and cannot give assistance? Who can give assistance? A friend, a relative, or two election judges, one from each political party. Who can't give assistance? A voter's employer, an agent of the voter's employer, an officer of the voters' union, or an agent of the voters' union. Remember to always fill out that affidavit. Intoxicated voters cannot receive assistance in the voting booth. For judges station number 1, it's the application judge. Here the voter states his or her name and address, and you verify that it matches your records, and you verify that the voter has not already voted, so check your list, and then you complete that application. You're going to offer the voter instructions on the demonstrator ballot sheet and remind the voters to turn the ballot over to vote the issues on the back if applicable. Announce the voter's name and address out loud and pass the application to the verification judge at station 2. Judges station number 2 are the verification judges. These are two judges of the opposite parties. You're going to locate the voter's verification records. You're going to compare and verify signatures and addresses on the application matches the voter's record, and you're going to determine the correct ballot style and initial the application. Judge station number 3 is the ballot distribution judge. You're going to check the applications for the judge's initials and ballot style. You're going to spindle applications and number them consecutively and determine and locate the correct ballot sheet. You're going to initial the ballot sheet, provide the voter with the correct ballot style, offer a secrecy sleeve and instructions on voting and how to use the sleeve, and direct the voter to the voting booth. Spoiled ballots. So maybe somebody made a mistake on their ballot. The voter should request a new ballot, and the judges will mark the voter's application and the ballot envelopes will be placed in the before 7 p.m. envelope for spoiled ballots, and the voter will process and tabulate the corrected ballot as normal. So the voter will place their spoiled ballot in the envelope and seal it, and then the election judge will put the voter's envelope in the bigger envelope, basically. So you're going to place all the spoiled ballots in this envelope together. Why do we have provisional voting? It reduces confrontation and corrects mistakes in the registration process, and it updates voter records. When should you use provisional voting? If the judges have no record of registration and the voter refuses to register, if the voter did not provide ID when registering by mail and cannot provide it on election day, if the voter's voting status has been challenged, or if the voter's name appears on a list of people voting early. Do not issue a provisional ballot without calling your election authority first. Provisional voting procedures. You want to verify the name and address, fill out the application to vote, fill out the provisional voter affidavit, mark why the voter was given a provisional ballot, issue the voter the provisional ballot envelope, and deposit the ballot envelope in a secure, separate container. Provisional ballots do not go in the tabulator.
No!
You want to track your numbers, verify that the number of applications is equal to the number of ballots cast. You want to check your numbers about every hour. If you are in balance every hour, you'll be in balance when the polls close and everyone will be happy. Judge's station number 4 is the ballot box judge. The voter will insert their ballot into the tabulator unless they ask for assistance. And then you're going to check the voting booths just to make sure nothing got left behind. Over and undervoted ballots, the machine will identify these ballots, and the voter can either spoil the ballot and request a new one or cast the ballot as is, or they can return to the voting booth and add votes to the same ballot if they undervoted. In the event your tabulator stops working, you can use the emergency bin for ballots. Please contact your election authority immediately. Do not open this until after the polls close to insert the ballots into the tabulator. We don't want anyone recording you and putting you all over the internet, stuffing ballots into the tabulator. Voting should never stop. And here's the one cat in my presentation for you cat people. Curbside voting. They're supposed to notify the election authority the day before, but they don't always. 2 election judges, one from each party, will go out and complete the process as if the voter was in the polling place. The voter will complete the application, the judges will do the verification, the 2 judges will deliver the ballot out with a secrecy sleeve, the voter will vote in as much secrecy as they can in a car, and the 2 judges will bring the ballot back inside and insert it into the tabulator. And you want that voter to wait and go out and notify them when it's complete in case there's an issue with their ballot. At 6:30 p.m., announce that the polls will close in 1/2 hour, and don't forget to vote if you are in your voting precinct, but if you're not going to be, make sure to vote early or vote by mail. At 7 p.m., announce out loud that the polls are closed. All voters in line at 7 p.m. are allowed to vote. If you have a long line, you might want to ask somebody to stand at the end of it so you know who was in line at 7 p.m. and who tried to get in line after 7 p.m. You're going to close and lock all the doors and remove all the polling place signs. After the polls close, who is authorized to remain in the polls after they close? Basically everybody that was allowed in earlier except for the voters. Now you can open up that emergency bin and remove the ballots and insert them into the tabulator. And you're going to want to go ahead and open that up and look in there even if you didn't use it. Open the ballot box, remove the ballots from the tabulator, compare the number of ballots to the number of applications, and process the write-in votes. The write-in must be on the valid write-in sheets. You want to determine the voter's intent, so if they spelled it wrong but you can still tell it was one of the people on the write-in sheet, go ahead and count it. It must be printed or written on the line. It can't be stamped or stickered, and the oval must be darkened. If there is a valid write-in vote, tally it appropriately on this sheet. If there are no valid write-in votes, please write none across the sheet. You're going to complete and sign all your forms and leave your polling place clean and tidy. Finally, 2 eligible judges, one from each political party, will deliver the materials directly to the election authority's office when everything is done so the election authority can close out the election. And just a friendly reminder that the results that print on your tape that night are not necessarily the results that are going to be finalized because you're missing vote by mail ballots, early vote counts, and possible provisional ballot counts.